When you see these rambling old mansions left to just weather the natural elements, you have to wonder what happened to them to reach that sad state. Once spectacular and grand, filled with people and lavish interiors, now rotting away and collecting dust and a host of insects. We're going to do some traveling today and visit some of these once beautiful homes and mansions. Number 18. Home Sweet Home. Linwood Hall in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania was built between 1897 and 1900 by Horace Trumbauer for industrialist Peter A.B. Widener. It boasts 110 rooms and once held one of the most impressive private art collections in the world. It had a ballroom for 1,000 guests, a swimming pool, wine cellars, farm, and sits on a 34-acre estate. It's currently vacant, but owned by the First Korean Church of New York. You can own it too if you're able to shell out $15.5 million. Number 17. Nobody's home. And they won't be for quite a while. Pedersty Castle in Pedersty, Ukraine was first built between 1635 and 1640. It was functioning well until Russian soldiers destroyed and looted the luxurious contents. Shortly thereafter, in 1915, the castle became headquarters of the 5th Austrian-Hungarian Corps. Many years later, it became a tuberculosis sanitarium and eventually caught fire in 1956, which burned continually for 3 weeks. The Lviv Gallery of Arts is trying to return the castle to its former glory, but with funding severely lacking, not much has transpired from this grand idea. Number 16. Home is where the heart is. Sutton Scarsdale Hall in England has history that goes back centuries, and the original hall was built sometime in the 1100s. It's located in Derbyshire, and the building as we see it today was commissioned in 1724. It belonged to the Arkwright family for close to 100 years, and then in 1919, the building was asset stripped, and everything sold to the highest bidder. What remains of Sutton Scarsdale is currently managed by English Heritage, and many of the home's treasures have found a new home at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Number 15. Homegrown. Haddo House is located in Scotland and is believed to be empty for over 70 years when the owner didn't return from war and his wife packed what she could and left. The mansion dates back to the early mid-19th century and has been credited to John Smith and Archibald Simpson for the beautiful architecture. Not much more is known about this mansion except that it's now owned by the Durno family, who allegedly have no plans to sell, meaning it's just going to get more and more run down as the years pass. Number 14. Make yourself at home. This sprawling building is Halcyon Hall at Bennett College, Millbrook, New York. It was originally built as a luxury hotel in 1893, a project that New York publisher H.J. Davidson Jr. took upon himself. His vision was to have part hotel, part museum, with a collection of books and artifacts from all around the world. It sadly did not work out that way, and he abandoned the idea in 1901. In 1907, it changed into the Bennett School for Girls, and they enrolled their first 120 students. But it seems the college went bankrupt and shut its doors in 1978. The property was sold in 2014, and the new owners said their intention was to tear the building down. Number 13. There's no place like home. Chateau Miranda, or Chateau de Noisy, was this gorgeous abandoned mansion that stood the test of time. October 2017 was the last we saw of it though, as it was demolished after years of the municipality saying they would purchase the property. Built in 1866, Chateau Miranda belonged to the Liedekerke Beaufort family. They stayed there till 1939 when the home was taken over by the National Railway Company of Belgium. It was empty from 1991 as to maintain it would cost far too much money. Quite a bit of filming took place there, including the American TV series Hannibal. Number 12. Bring it home. This abandoned Georgian mansion sits on the shores of Loch Leven in Scotland and is known as Callard House. It's been empty since the 1940s. Rebuilt in the 1830s for Sir Duncan Cameron, the house replaced a previous one that had sadly been burned down. Not too much is known about this dwelling, but many reports of hauntings have surfaced about this eerie home. Number 11. It's good to be home. We leave Scotland behind and head to Ireland and pay a visit to Tyrone House in Galway. Built in 1779, it belonged to the St. George family, who were well connected in the city, owned lots of land, and were generally well off, with history saying it was all done in a rather sinister fashion by well-placed marriages. It's a Palladian-style building designed by architect John Roberts. Views are incredible, and the interior was gorgeous with no expense spared. The mansion was ruined in 1920 due to rumors floating around that it was going to be used by the Black and Tans, aka the Royal Irish Constabulary Special Reserve, as an infirmary. Number 10. Home away from home. Off to China we go and pop in at Chaonei number 81 in Beijing. Completed in 1910, it was built by the Qing royal family and was originally used as a church for British residents living in Beijing. In 1949, a high-ranking nationalist official who had been living there left in a hurry and fled to Taiwan. It's rumored that he deserted his wife, who was so devastated that she ended it all while living there, and locals believe her spirit haunts the place. Number 9. Home is where your story begins. And there is quite the story attached to Kasteel van Maesen in Belgium. It was built in 1628 as a stronghold and royal house, but the building changed and served several different purposes over the years. It was once a gin distillery, tobacco factory, and a girls' boarding school. The school was funded by the Belgian aristocracy, and it taught the girls about etiquette of high society. French education was later banned in Flemish regions, so in 1971 the school was closed down and the entire building demolished in 2010. Number 8. Damaged goods. If something is called the ruins, then you know that it's well and truly ruined. Located in the Philippines, the skeletal remains of this once gorgeous dwelling used to belong to the early 20th century sugar baron Don Mariano. He built the house in memory of his wife who didn't make it through the pregnancy of their 11th child. The place actually survived being set alight and thereafter sat as an empty shell for decades. The grounds of the building have since been cleaned up and it's a very popular tourist destination. Number 7. Broken Home. Built in 1820, this is the once impressive Camsnathan House, which still stands in North Lanarkshire, Scotland. It used to belong to the Lockhart family of Castle Hill, and it was built to their exact specifications. It once served as a restaurant, hotel, and medieval banqueting hall. The place was open to the public through till 1984, but the building was becoming too dangerous, so they had to shut it off to the public. There is a group which was established in 2014 whose aim is to protect the building from any further damage. Number 6. Three's a Crowd. Huguette Clark was a reclusive heiress who departed Earth in 2011 when she was 104 years old. She spent the last few decades of her life in hospital and left behind 3 lavish properties. She owned a 42-room apartment on 5th Avenue in Manhattan. She also had a Connecticut chateau valued at $24 million and a Santa Barbara estate valued at $100 million. Each property was well maintained as if she would arrive at any moment. Number 5. My home is my castle. And that is no exaggeration. Bannerman Castle on Polapil Island, New York, was built by a Scottish arms dealer, Francis Bannerman, who purchased the island in 1900 to store his stock. 2 years after his final exit, everything in his storage exploded, destroying most of the house. The island has been left to nature since the 50s and is open for a tour if you're keen to check it out today. Number 4. King of My Castle. This mansion is an abandoned one, located in Moscow, Russia. Not too much is known about this beautiful abode, but it is a former family estate with a large park. It's believed to have been built sometime in the 17th century and has undergone many changes over the years. Number 3. Hold the Fort. The Mudhouse Mansion of Ohio is a very mysterious place, and there are many unanswered questions about it. It was demolished in September of 2015, and there are conflicting stories about the history of the house. It's built sometime between the 1840s, 1860s, say some, while others pin the date to the 1900s. It's been owned by several different people over the years, and stories are quite creepy about what went on in there. Despite the property not standing, the grounds still intrigue people immensely. Number 2. Back in Time. We're off to Wales to visit this hall whose name I cannot pronounce because it is Welsh. However, we will put it up on the screen. It was originally built between 1861 and 1866. It was built for Henry Robertson Sandbach, who purchased the land in 1830. Prior to the building of the hall, there was a property on this land that had been there since 1674, but was demolished to make way for the new hall. A decade later, arsonists destroyed much of the hall and it was abandoned. Number 1. Fit for a King. Darul Aman Palace in Afghanistan is a grand abandoned building located quite close to Kabul. Built in the 1920s for King Amanullah Khan, the palace was meant to modernize the country. The idea was to have a new capital city centered around the palace. They then hoped to build a narrow-gauge railway connecting the building with the old capital. The palace was also earmarked to be the future parliament building, but that never happened either. In the early 20th century, the building became the Kabul University School of Medicine, and shortly thereafter, it was also a warehouse. In 1969, fire destroyed much of the building. They rebuilt it, and it served as the headquarters for Afghanistan's Ministry of Defense during the 70s, and yet again, the building fell victim to fire. Restoration took place again, but it was heavily shelled in the mid-1990s and couldn't recover. It was a refugee camp for a while too, and lay empty for years. There is a restoration project underway which is set to be complete in 2019. Have you been fortunate enough to visit any of these abandoned mansions or houses? If so, share your experience with us in the comments down below, as well as your pronunciation guides, please, and subscribe to our channel for more daily videos. Thanks for watching.